Well, good morning and welcome again to the Veterans Forum. The program is coming to you from the television studios here in Bedford, New Hampshire. I'm Bob Stevens. Today is the 27th of April, 2018. Now we have all kinds of shows that we've done in the past, but we'd like to ask every one of you guys and gals who served anywhere in any of the conflicts, from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, you name it. If you can and will, share that experiences here in a televised interview. This program is being conducted on a local basis throughout the country, stations such as this, I guess guys like me, who want to make sure that if you have a story to tell, that you get it told properly, recorded properly, but more important, it's you who made it happen are reporting what it took to get that done. Now, before I go on though, this is something new that I've been gotten in the last couple of weeks. It's a telephone link throughout the state of New Hampshire. Any guy or gal or friends of someone who may be in need of some help, trouble, information, call that number, 211. It'll put you in touch with this card. You probably can't read it, but there's some 28 different services and people who are here to help you. You have to ask for it, but if you do, stand ready because you'll get the help you need. And don't be bashful. If you need help for whatever reason, it's there for you to do. Well, today we have another guy who did his thing way back when, a little bit more recently, but I'll ask Brian to introduce himself, and then we'll get the show on the road. Okay, young man, if you will, would you tell us who you are, your name, where you live, branch of service, and service dates to start things?
Sure. Ryan Pitts, P-I-T-T-S, live in southern New Hampshire, served in the Army, got out as a staff sergeant, and served from August 2003 to October 2009.
Good show, huh? Okay. Well, now we know where you came from. Let's find out how you got to be yourself. For example, let's go way back. If you will, tell me where you were born, when you were born, and what was your life like in your early years, back in the 10s and 12s, if you will.
All right. I'm a son of New England. I grew up, I was born in Lowell, Mass. in 1985. Lived there for about 8 years, moved to southern New Hampshire, later on moved to Vermont, back to southern New Hampshire. I went to middle school and high school right here in Amherst, New Hampshire. So that's where I've always called home.
Okay, in quotes.
Yeah, in quotes.
Now, do you have any brothers or sisters?
I do. I have a brother, Scott.
What was your relationship with them as you were growing up?
Growing up, I was probably the stereotypical older brother. I gave my brother a hard time.
Why?
I don't know, because I was bigger. But we have a good relationship now.
Yeah, rank has its privileges.
Rank does have its privileges,
yeah.
but he's bigger than I am now, so that keeps me in check.
Okay. Now, when you're going through this command stage, were you a good student, average student? What was your life like in school? What did you do to keep happy? Any clubs and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I was an average student. I didn't have the drive to put a whole lot of time into school, so I did well without putting a whole lot of effort into it.
Oh, you were
Probably could have
lucky.
done better. Yeah, I was lucky.
Okay.
I guess
Had
in
you
that
been
sense.
more applied yourself, you could have done better, perhaps?
I think so. And
Would it have been better in retrospect? It's a dumb question.
I don't know. I enjoyed the time how I spent
Okay.
it maybe not studying, so I don't miss that.
Oh, how do you not study? You do other things, huh?
Yeah, maybe ride four-wheelers or
Oh.
play paintball or do whatever the other number of things I used to do.
Okay. How about sports?
Never
Any
played.
clubs, anything like that?
I played intramural sports in high school. I was never athletic growing up. I was always uncoordinated and generally smaller than a lot of the kids that I was playing sports with.
You kind of growed a little bit.
I did, a
when
little
you
bit.
came in here.
Yeah,
You matured.
I did. Yeah.
Oh, great. Any special, what's the word called, talent or thing that you had in school that you've kind of fostered as you're going along? Art work or mechanical work, like a tinkering?
No, I don't think I really had any mechanical, artistic, athletic talents
Oh?
otherwise growing up. I think I didn't have, hobbies per se, but growing up, once I moved to Mount Vernon, New Hampshire is where I lived when I was in school. I worked on a horse farm from middle school into high school. And then my parents had like a hobby farm. So we'd have pigs and maybe some cows and sheep. So I just worked on the 2 farms, worked a lot, at my parents' house.
Was that year round or just summers? What did you do between sessions in school? You have any kind of summer jobs or whatever to make a buck?
Yeah. So, middle school into the early part of high school, I worked at a horse farm in Amherst, New Hampshire.
Doing what?
I was just a farmhand. I didn't really want anything to do with the horses at that point. I fixed fences, mowed fields. I'd feed, I'd clean stalls.
Well, they happen to be in the way while you're making your fence, huh? Okay.
Not too often. And then I worked around my parents' house, and then my old man has his own business doing custom cellar doors. So I did that during the summers when I wasn't in school.
Now, the cellar doors, to me, that there's 2 kinds. One you walk down into and you pull a hatch up, or you just open the damn thing and walk in at ground level. Did you do both kinds, and were you multitask?
He specialized in the outside the bulkhead, the steel doors. But he did them both, and we specialized in everything to do with that. So I'd say cellar entries.
Yeah.
Exciting space.
No, but hey, somebody had to do it. That's the good part. And when did you graduate from high school?
I graduated in 2003.
And then what?
So it was about halfway through my senior year that I enlisted. I did the delayed entry program, so I think it was right around January of 2003. Went down to Boston, did my whole in-processing and took my tests and signed my paperwork to join, and then graduated in May and didn't take off. I took off in August to go to basic training in Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Okay, I have heard the term before, but I'm not sure. Delayed entry, what does that mean?
So you can sign up.
At what age? I guess the age is the big thing.
So I was 17
when
I signed up. And I think some people went earlier. You can go to basic training. The only thing is you can't deploy to a combat zone until you're 18.
Oh, okay, all right. And then when you did make the 18th, where did you go and how did you get there?
So I was able to leave. When I left in August, I was 17. And I turned 18 in basic training. And then by the time I finally got to my unit and we deployed, I think I was 19 when I first deployed to Afghanistan.
Okay. Now, what did you report when you first went in? And what's the big question? What's your reaction the first couple of days when you were there as me no longer civilian, me now GI?
Yeah, it was definitely a culture shock. So I showed up in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. I'd never been on a plane. My first plane ride was to basic training. Yeah, a lot of shocks along the way in the early part, and I'd never been further west than eastern New York.
Oh,
yeah,
you traveled.
Yeah, I was well
I got
traveled.
to Albany once and got lost.
I think I'd been to Six Flags in eastern upstate New York, so that was as far west as I had been. And just even the terrain was a culture shock for Oklahoma. I was just, how is this so flat? I can actually see further than 100 yards where all the trees at.
Yeah, you had to climb a hill to find where the rest of them were.
Right. And it was just that. It's just such a different culture. It's just getting used to. I don't own my time or myself anymore. I don't own a damn thing.
This is mine, and you can do what you will.
Yeah.
Now, how was your reception the first couple of days? Other than being a culture shock as far as what you got, how you got into intake, if you will.
Yeah, so we went through the in-processing unit there. I can't remember what it was called, but it was just, a number of days of just kind of sitting around waiting, doing paperwork, doing our medical examinations, kind of getting ready, getting our equipment together before we actually went to our basic training unit. And it felt like, I don't know, I guess the calm before the storm. Just a lot of sitting around waiting, trying to learn some of the stuff. Here's how you should march and understand the rank structure before you get over there.
Yeah, this is your left foot, that's your right foot.
Exactly. You start with your left and follow with the right until somebody tells you to stop.
Hope that the rest are with you, otherwise they're on a step.
Yeah, exactly.
When you got your what's the word, introduction, you got everything finally squared away, when did you ever finally get a feeling when, okay, here it is, I don't know why I did it, but damn it, I'm going to make sure I do it right. You ever had that feeling? That you finally accept yourself being where you were at?
I think it took a little while into basic training to just accept that my life is not my own anymore. This is what it is, and the sooner that I embrace that, the better life will be.
Oh yeah. Now, what's your reaction to the DIs? Were they like the Hollywood types back in my time, or more polite, like, would you please do this, as opposed to some other form of command?
Yeah, I'm not sure I ever heard please while I was in basic training. They were hard on us, and it's funny to think back on at that time that basic training was the hardest thing I had ever been through, and thinking that, you know, wow, this is so hard. But looking back on it, on everything that happened after that point, that was the easiest part of my military career.
Then the recognition, though, and I think most of the guys said the same thing. They grabbed me, in effect, tore me apart. Marines, Navy, Army, you name it. And then all of a sudden they thought, piece here and a piece there, and before you know it, I started to feel not comfortable, but it's something I could anticipate, I could do, and keep doing and do it well. Good word,
acclimated. They tear you down and kind of start building you up brick by brick.
Yeah. I was told I owed a few bricks, I guess. But the best part about it was, you know, did you start forming, I'll call them friendships, buddies, or whatever, as you went into the service and they started feeling for you? Did you kinship, I guess you'd want to call it?
I think absolutely.
How did you get together?
Right, I think, you know, the strong bonds happened once I got to my unit.
Yeah.
And I ended up at the 173rd Airborne Brigade in Vicenza, Italy. And I got there in February 2004. And, you know, it's built over time. Like, trust is one of those things that you don't just have it right off the bat. It's earned. And the time spent there, I think it was all the challenges. Misery can form some pretty strong bonds, whether that's in training, the elements, and then eventually combat, that we absolutely form strong bonds. I mean, I look at the guys that I served with, and they're brothers to me.
Now let's go back a bit. When you finally get in, what kind of selections did you have, or options as to what you wanted to specialize in or be?
I think there were probably a lot of options when I was preparing to enlist. So mind you, again, I'm 17, I'm halfway through my senior year. My parents had to sign off on me joining, and I had wanted to go be an airborne ranger, but my parents thought that was too dangerous and wouldn't sign the paperwork, and I didn't want to wait until I was 18. And so the recruiter had kind of talked to me on the side and said, hey, look, you know, you can go be a forward observer. They go everywhere that the infantry goes.
Yeah,
and
well,
if you want, you can get your way to Ranger Regiment if you wanted to. And so that's how I selected it, how I picked that job, because I couldn't get there right away, you know, sign up and go do what I wanted to do. And when I enlisted, I didn't care where I went. I just wanted my job. I just wanted to get into the Army. And I had enlisted needs of the Army, so I didn't have a duty station picked out. And when they were basic training, you know, the other thing they can't prepare you for, aside from the culture shock, is the pay shock of, I think I made, you know, took home $400 a month as a private, you know, before taxes.
Wow.
Probably better than the time when you were in. That would have been a
we had Bob on $385, and that was it. No change.
Yeah, and so they were looking for volunteers for airborne training. And they, you know, I was like, okay, you know, I'd like to jump out of planes. That sounds kind of fun. And the caveat there was, if you end up on jump status, you get an extra $150 a month.
Oh, yeah.
That sweetened the pot for me. I put my hand up, and that's how I actually ended up in Italy with an airborne unit.
Now, how long did you train to become airborne, as far as what you had to do and what it took from you and what you had to put in, so that we can get some idea what it is? Because a lot of people don't have any idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, the military does an incredible job of with training in terms of crawl, walk, run. So airborne school's 3 weeks. You start first with your ground phase, where you're just jumping off of something, you know, the height of this table, and learning how to actually fall, because it's controlled falling more than anything else. And, you know, learning how to, the procedures when you're coming down and exiting the aircraft, what to do in the air, the airborne operations themselves. Then you move on to week 2, and you're doing towers. So you're jumping out of these towers onto basically like these zip lines and practicing the proper exit of the aircraft and the other aspects of it. And then the 3rd week is actual jump week, where you're going down to the harness shed, you're getting rigged up, and actually you get to do 5 jumps out of a fixed wing large. For us, it was
in one day, 1 week, 1 month.
It was 1 week.
Okay.
We did about 1 jump a day.
How was you feeling the first time out the door?
Nervous, you know, because I'd never jumped out of anything. Yeah. And but you know, they do such a good job training you. You're practicing exiting the aircraft with people on the ground in this mock aircraft, and it's just drilled into your head, like green light comes on, follow the person
Follow
in
the
front of
guy
you,
and
follow these.
make sure you keep
and
going.
It's not even like you're thinking I'm jumping out of a plane. It's just the green light's on. I got to follow the person in front of me, hand off my static line, and jump. And all of a sudden, you're outside the aircraft, and you realize
can't
you're
get back.
1,000 feet in the air, exactly, and just trying to avoid people in the air. But it was a rush. I loved it, even the first time.
Anybody ever candle?
Candle?
Roman candle?
Oh, just shoot
Straight
right
up.
in. I didn't see any in basic training, and I never had any on the jumps. But we hear all the stories.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were injuries that happened
Oh, yeah.
once I got to my unit. Guys not keeping feet and knees together, not properly handing off their static line and getting caught up in it, exiting the aircraft and severing a bicep. There's all.
That's the glory stuff. You don't need to go there. No, seriously, because I've, as you can suspect, I've introduced guys from submarines and surface Navy and what have you, and the submariner looks up and says, what ding-dang idiot's going to jump out of a perfectly good plane? Oh, gee. And then the guy in the plane says, what a-hole's sitting down there in the tin can going to get bombed to hell? Everybody has their own look on life, but coming down, it's a lot easier than trying to come up sometimes, I think. But how did you feel after your first jump? Did it? Now I'm ready to go. Get me quick.
When I hit the ground, absolutely. I was like, okay, I made it here safely. Let's do it again.
Okay. Now, you guys don't have to rig. Do you ever have to practice rigging your own chutes?
No, we don't
And
pack
the
our
long
own
tables?
chutes. No. Whole special MOS for that, military occupational specialty.
Yeah, they say that if it doesn't work, you don't have to bother to bring it back either. I know it's gruesome, but that's cruel. Okay, now, how long before you then were ready, and in your opinion, I guess, in the armies, to deploy, to go somewhere to do something? When and how were you brought overseas?
Yeah, so after I
And
finished,
where'd you go?
after I finished airborne school, ended up in Italy, and that unit was in Iraq actually when I got there, and it was probably a month or two after I'd gotten there that they returned from Iraq, and once they got back, it was just get ready to go again, and I spent about a year and a half training with the unit there in Italy, and we'd go to Germany and train
Where
and do
in
our
Italy?
field exercises. We were in Vicenza, Italy, so it's about 45 minutes west of Venice.
Okay, I did a lot of work with the fighter pilots down at Fuji, I guess they call it, just by the boot, turn of the boot.
Okay. We were up north.
And how was your? It sounds silly, but living conditions there.
They were good. I mean, the barracks were
Good barracks
nice.
or the old ones?
No, they were newer barracks. We had decent barracks, 2 men per room, had your own bathroom to share between the two of you. So,
Rough.
Yeah, real
We
rough.
had a shovel in a tree. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
It was good. I mean, that base is small. It was right in the middle of Vicenza. It was only 3 miles around the perimeter. So you could walk right off the post into a pizzeria across the street and get a pizza and some house wine. That wasn't bad.
Good. It's nice. Manja. Okay, when you got to Afghanistan, how did you feel?
Again, just another culture shock. I mean, spending all this time training up. I mean, you could spend years training, but there's no substitute for the real thing. And for a while there, again, it was just the culture shock of just how they lived. I mean, one of the things that first kind of hit me was just that they're still living in mud huts, and there are lots of places without,
Sanitation.
or electricity. It was
Or
like
water.
going back in time
I know.
a couple thousand years. That was a big shock.
Well, where were you stationed in Afghanistan?
So my first tour, we were in Zabul province in a town called Kalat. So it was southwestern Afghanistan. We're about 100 kilometers outside Kandahar.
What's the indigenous territory? Mountainous, plains, or whatever?
Yeah, where we were at there.
You get a feel for what you'll have to live through and live with.
Where we were at there, there was a Highway 1 that ran kind of southwest to northeast. And in the section where we were at, it was probably about 20 kilometers on either side was flat-ish. It was probably small rolling hills, but then it shot straight up to the biggest mountains I had ever seen at that point in time.
I know, that's the thing. I could never make that picture flat, and then all of a sudden, but it's mountainous. And then you open up the geography book, and
Yeah.
pretty good humps. Now, when you're walking around, did you have to have any foot patrols, or how did you acclimate yourself from where you were as to how you had to train to get into the outer perimeters.
We had a large area. Our battalion had a large area, and a lot of we were fairly dispersed. And where we were at, we worked out of our battalion forward operating base. We did a lot of patrols by Humvee, so we drove in trucks out to engage. Go visit villages, have leadership meetings with the local leaders, or go conduct missions, go conduct raids to try and catch enemy forces unaware. We did a lot by Humvee. There were times where we would fly by helicopter, do what we called an air assault, go in, at dawn as the sun's coming up or right before to try and catch the enemy as they might be waking up. So it was a mix.
Okay. Now, did you ever have any problems with some of the stuff you see in the news of people infiltrating your perimeter, loaded with C4 and whatever else they could have, as far as trying to just make themselves uncomfortable, make you uncomfortable?
No, we didn't have any instances of, I think, on either deployment in any location I was at with either suicide bombers or vehicle-borne IEDs.
Okay. That's good to hear. Damn good to hear. Now, trying to figure out what the best way to ask the question. Just ask the question. Okay. You were there basically as a military outfit, but you did it, as you've said, I think, humanistic or humane services too, as well as talking to the people, trying to quiet them down, make friends, not if you can make friends that way, and get their comfort and get their cooperation to make your life better.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it was a mix, right? At that point, the COIN or counterinsurgency operations, it was to live close to the population and try and win the hearts and minds. So we did a mix of try and provide them security by attacking enemy fighters that are coming in and making life difficult for everybody. But there were also we did missions for medical missions to bring our docs out to a village and just treat people for various ailments for what we could there. There were times where we would try and bring out rice or other food items, if it had been a hard year, to try and help the local population in that way. We also funded, civil projects. I know by the time that we had gotten there were already, a number of projects that had already been completed. For example, that put in wells.
What could be a project?
Putting in a well.
Good.
Putting in a well so that they can have clean drinking water.
Plain drinking water.
Yeah, especially in the desert, that's an important one. There were times we built schools, improved roads. There were a lot of people that got employed on our bases that would work in the chow halls.
Okay, do the laundry and all that good stuff.
All that stuff, yeah. We employ them, it makes their lives better, and it takes something off our plate so that we can focus on our mission.
Now, are any of their troops embedded with you guys, or were you with them?
Yeah, so on my first deployment, we did a number of missions with the Afghan National Army, the Afghan National Police. We had a good relationship with the Afghan National Police in the area that we were at. So we did a number of missions with them. They really helped us find some enemy strongholds. I saw a progression from my first deployment in 2005, 2006 to my second in 07, 08, where we really started, I guess the Afghan National Army, in my first deployment, a lot of times they'd come in after a battle and we'd use them to do battle damage assessment, scour the battlefield for enemy casualties and help us get a sense.
Pick up and clean up.
Yeah, and to shift to where we had spent so much in trying to train them and enable their army, to on my second deployment that they would accompany us as another element to support us in missions, to even towards the end where we were the support to them. Okay. They were the main
effort. Transferred it. Yeah.
Yep. And that we would try and fight side by side.
Yeah. Did you buddy up with any of them so you became good friends, even though you couldn't stand each other, probably the language?
Yeah, I think there were times, at different bases that we would get, different relationships with the locals that we would be co-located with. It was tough is that we're switching out of different locations, and as they get moved around too, that just took time.
Memories, easy. Okay. Anything outstanding in your first deployment, good or bad, that you'd like to share with us? I'm trying to pump without pumping.
Yeah, I think I learned more in the first 30 days on the ground there than I had in the previous 2.5 years training up to go. And that's not a knock on any of the training, because our leaders did a tremendous job training us physically, mentally, tactically, so that we could be proficient there. But like I had said earlier, there's no substitute for the real thing. I'd grown up, watching military movies and reading the books and hearing about the camaraderie, but to be there and to see what guys were willing to do for each other was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
To see what real teamwork looks like, everybody just rowing together in the same direction, and really seeing that sometimes you can accomplish you're capable of more than you ever thought you could be. Not because you yourself are strong, but because the people around you help pick you up. And
you what's the word? Supplement each other's best points.
Yeah.
And it's a good feeling.
Yeah. I think you, like with any team, A players, you elevate each other.
Yeah.
You're better together than you could be individually.
Yeah. What's that old Newt Rockney bit? There's no I in team.
Right. Yeah.
It's corny, but it's true. And the good part, as you well know, you can come into a new group, but you don't have to say a damn word because you know the words and what they're talking about. Just there's an empathy there that, okay, boy, you've gone around the block. Come on, you can join us.
Yeah.
And they accept you for what you are. It's a good feeling. Now, you've gone through your first deployment, and as I remember what you told me earlier, and when you got back home for your leave or whatever, you went and got married. Is that correct?
No, I didn't get married until after my service.
Oh, okay, then I got the wrong...
I don't know what point you want to, we can go there now, but that's towards the end of the story.
No, we'll get to the end.
Okay.
Save it for the good part. But when you got back after you've served, how were you promoted? What was your progression? When and how did you become a PFC, corporal, sergeant, what have you at the line?
Yep. So
what did you do to get them?
I came in the military as a private first class because they had a number of things in the recruiting process. If you sell out one of your buddies and get them to sign up, you can get a little bit extra rank through these trainings. So I sold out some friends.
That's called bounty hunting.
Yes, I was a bounty hunter, and so I went in as a private first class. I got promoted to specialist when I was in Afghanistan, so that was my next promotion, probably right around the early end of the early period that I was eligible.
Would that be an E2 in today's language?
E3 to E4.
E2,
so
okay,
specialist
I'm
E4.
just getting to the E's right now.
Yeah, and I was actually promoted to sergeant on that deployment towards probably the middle of that deployment.
Now, was it because of what you did or because just time and grade or a combination? It's a
I think it was a combination. I mean, part of it, we had been in a large firefight in June of 2005, and one of the Fort observers, who was a sergeant, he was an E5, had been wounded. And when that happened, I moved over and took over his position until he came back, operating at that rank level and that responsibility. I ended up staying with that platoon the rest of the deployment in that role. So I think they promoted me because I had shown that I could operate at that level, I guess.
Okay. They don't hand them out. You got to work for them.
True.
We both know that.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds good. Now, when you did get home after your first deployment, how did you feel? Were you just on a 30-day leave and then have to go back in, or you just, what's the break point?
Yeah.
I can't figure that one out.
We came directly back to Italy. I think we were there for a couple of weeks before we took 30-day block leave. But something that's always stuck out in my mind of when we came back is I remember, we spend this year in Afghanistan, and you're thinking the whole time about getting back and all the things you're going to do. And I remember we got off the buses, we're on our parade field, our commanders released us, and this is kind of the first time that it's, hey, you're left to your own devices, you can kind of go do whatever you want.
This is in Italy now.
In Italy, yeah.
Okay.
And we don't have our weapons. That felt weird, I'd carried this gun with me, for a year, for 12 months. And it went with me everywhere, slept with it.
Damn right.
And now it's gone, and you feel kind of exposed. And I remember just even right there on the parade field, they release us and just kind of being like, all right, now what do I do with myself? And getting back to the barracks and just thinking like, I've been thinking about this moment for so long, and now I don't know what to do. And I think I did what most everybody else did. We went over to the PX and started spending some of that deployment money that we had saved. I don't remember what.
Strange you would say that.
Probably the same thing every generation before me had done.
That's rite of passage.
Yeah.
Now, did anybody contemplate going home, or did you have the option to fly MATS or something to get back in that 30-day time frame to get back to the States?
Yeah, I think most of us did. Most of us went back for that 30-day block leave that we had, so most of us went home. I came home to New Hampshire, and then after that, we all start trickling back, and
Okay.
downtime's over. Start getting ready for the next deployment.
Now, how'd you feel the first day home, the first night? Did you, hey, Mom, I'm home, what's for supper? Or was it oh, he's with us again? How'd you feel?
I think I had a new appreciation. I can remember coming in, getting ready to land, because coming from Italy is, I don't know, 12 hours to get back to Boston, because I fly into Boston. And I can remember looking out the window and just waiting to hit American soil, and just getting this big smile on my face, and just this new like appreciation that I had for being an American, I guess. For the
was it commercial or your government?
No, it was commercial. Everybody flew back commercial.
Okay.
And I don't remember the rest of that time home, but I'm sure I ate as much of my parents' cooking as I could, and went out to eat and spend time with friends. But that part sticks out in my mind of landing and looking out.
This is it's your show, but when Kenny and I first got home, he's my kid brother. We're going to show my mother how to swab the deck. That sounds silly, but all we can remember, because she's down on hands and knees, you know, the old scrub brush, and she said, "No, I'll show you how we did it, Mom." And we were swab jockeys for about 2 hours, and she finally said, "Hey, please, it's clean enough. Get the hell out of here." We've paid your dues or something, but that was it. Okay, now, number 2, we started going back in the second deployment. You're going back from your leave. Where did you report back?
Went right back to Italy after my leave.
Okay, that's your port.
Yeah, that's my home station, my
Okay.
unit. We spent about another year and some change, just get right back in that training cycle, come back off a block leave and start getting ready for the next fight. I mean, that was just kind of the nature of, I guess, service for anybody at that point in time in the war, was you were either there or you were getting ready to go. And it was you're there, you're back, you're there, you're back. And so we just started training. We trained there in Italy, you know, every day, and just whatever tasks, our soldier tasks, getting ready, whatever training we could do there. And then a lot of our live fire exercises and like large, you know, war game type exercises, we go up to Germany.
Now, do you have any training that you see on these TV shows, house to house search on foot? How did you do that? How'd you work that?
I mean, we had a shoot house or a training house there on post. They'd practice there, the infantry guys would. When we'd go up to Germany, there'd be mock villages or buildings, and that was all part of the training. They'd have live fire lanes where they would have, the guys would first go through, you know, no rounds, then maybe with blanks, and then with live rounds actually clearing like a mock house, firing at targets, live rounds at targets, to build up that confidence. And, you know, so everybody understands, you know, when you enter that room, you don't know what you're going to find,
right.
but this
Quick
is how
decision.
you react, and this is how you know, ensure that you're safely engaging people inside that room without putting your own guys at risk, or mitigating that risk as much as possible.
It's a big responsibility.
Yep,
Yeah.
it is.
Oh. When you were on your patrols, I don't know how to ask the question, but what did the feeling you had as you be driving through some of these villages in your Humvees or on foot? What to look out for? How to spot the bad guys? Because everybody, you know, the towel heads, that you can't tell one from another.
We, yeah, I think the big indicator for us was kids. If there were kids out and around, we felt safe-ish. It was just an indicator that, okay, maybe it's a little bit safer here. There's no attacks planned. When there were no kids around, that was kind of our indication that, okay, maybe something's going to happen. Just be on alert even more so than you already are. I mean, we're always scanning, always treat, you know, like it's a hostile environment. But when there weren't kids around, you went into it kind of ready to react. Because I think a lot of times, oftentimes, the locals would have an idea that something's going to happen, so they wouldn't be outside.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, that's the way they worked in Germany too. Yeah. Okay, now, when you were, quote, in your unit, was there any sort of I'll call it a schedule as to when you would be on call to do a patrol or to go someplace, or does it just rotate? Or what if it's say IT comes back and says, hey, we have this situation here, get the boys and take off. How do you handle something like that?
Yeah, I mean, there is a schedule, kind of like a cadence that we fall into. You know, maybe one unit is on base security for a week or two, and another unit is on, you know, daily patrols, doing missions, like a mission cycle. All of us, all the time, are on, you know, basically quick reaction force. I mean, that's everybody. You know that if somebody else is in a fight, it doesn't matter whether you're supposed to be on guard or whether you didn't sleep or you're on a mission. Like, you go there. So oftentimes, yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of how we were broken up. You know, certain amount pulling security, get into a schedule, a routine, doing missions, and then also just, you know, stuff pops up and you go do it.
And this sounds silly, but was there any kind of, I'll call it, a special type unit that would man a certain type of situation? Or was everybody A1 on the line?
I think
is that a good question? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're talking like that's broader than just what our battalion or company was. You know, a lot of times we're out and we're manning forward operating bases, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure back at, you know, you get to some of the bigger bases and there's some contingency forces there, whether it's, you know, special forces or Rangers
QRTs all over the
or
place.
the other you know, other branches, special operations. You know, on our first deployment, we would rotate through our brigade would rotate platoons through to Kandahar to serve as the quick reaction force for southern Afghanistan. So if a unit, no matter what the unit was, got into a fight and there was any loss of life or you know, they were drastically outnumbered, we would get spun up. Our sole purpose was to just sit there for a month and wait. And if we got the call, run down to the flight line and fly out and reinforce.
Okay, so flight lines will be helicopter drops?
Yep.
That's the best way, isn't it?
It's better than walking.
Oh, hell yeah. Good when you look down. Now, what's the town again that caused you some problems?
Wanat.
Wanat. Can you bring us up to how, if you can, what was the call and how did you respond to it and what was the result?
I think I'd have to go back to kind of the beginning when we got there.
Buddy.
So when we moved into this area of Afghanistan, so Kunar, Nuristan provinces, we had a number of you know, satellite fire bases, and we had two. So our main battalion forward operating base was in the town of Nangalam, and it was called FOB Blessing, Forward Operating Base Blessing. And about, it's like 16 or 20 kilometers to the north, we had two other outposts that were separated from each other probably by about 3 or 4 kilometers, maybe more. One was COP Bella, Combat Outpost Bella, and the other was what we called our ranch house. And one, COP Bella, was in the valley floor, nestled alongside this small village and a river, could only be reinforced or resupplied by helicopter. You couldn't drive up there. Yep. And then Ranch House was a small base, about the same size probably as Bella, but stuck on the side of a mountain that could, again, only be reinforced or resupplied by helicopter. Very high elevation. There was no, I want to say, there was a kind of a formal helicopter landing zone, but it was really like the top of a building. So when helicopters came in, they couldn't fully land. They had to stay at, you know, max power. So they're almost hover landing because they could come down through the roof. And our command knew coming in that this is kind of a bad situation to have these bases out there that can only be resupplied or reinforced by helicopter, because they could be easily isolated by the enemy in a fight, which happened on 2 instances. In August of 2007, the enemy had attacked our ranch house outpost, which was only manned by, I want to say, you know, maybe 3 squads of our 1st platoon, as well as some Afghan National Army soldiers.
So they embedded with you, okay.
They were embedded with them. But, you know, this outpost was, you know, maybe the size of a football field on the side of a mountain, couldn't necessarily see from guard post to guard post. The enemy attacked first thing in the morning, and they were able to actually infiltrate and take about half the base before they were repelled. And they almost were able to capture that base, but our guys fought them off. And they did A-10 attack aircraft,
War
did gun
dogs.
runs within the wire, again, repelled that assault. That led to, the decision to shut down Ranch House later on. We shut that down. Our first platoon pulled back and consolidated at Cop Bella. Now, Cop Bella is alone, isolated by itself up there by about 16, 20 kilometers.
Now, the outposts, were they just for forward observations or just reporting what's going on?
Deny enemy freedom of movement in those areas. We would operate missions out of those areas.
Okay.
So it wasn't just an observe. It was, trying to have effect on the area that you're in. But it's limited when you only have one platoon up there and you're basically walking. And if you want to go anywhere, you're going to have to climb, 1,000 feet in elevation before you move anywhere because you don't want to give the enemy the high ground. And so first platoon, who was in Ranch House, the Ranch House battle, they pulled back to Cop Bella. They went back to that village of Aranis, where Ranch House was at, to visit with the elders at their request. They went out, stayed overnight, and upon leaving the next day, that evening, they were ambushed on a mountain trail, and we lost 6 guys. But the rest, everybody was wounded in the patrol, but everybody fought, either to the last breath or until they were relieved and taken out of there. So we ended up replacing at Cop Bella. Even the previous year, we had been talking about moving up to Wanat. We're not going to be able to remove or shut down Ranch House and Cop Bella without moving a presence up there. That was kind of the government headquarters for the region. Our idea was to move in close to the populace and be in a place that we could reinforce either by helicopter or we could drive up to Wanat. And Cop Bella was coming over the winter. We were up there, our platoon. We had switched out with first platoon after the November ambush coming back from Aranis. The enemy was increasingly stepping up attacks on Bella, both small arms, but also launching a lot of rockets in there. And we were gathering intelligence over the course of the winter that they were trying to figure out. They couldn't quite figure out how to attack it like they had with Ranch House. They wanted to overrun the base.
Overrun it, yeah.
Yeah, and they couldn't quite figure out how they were going to do it based on the observation posts, the guard shacks that we had set up in the surrounding terrain. We had 2 up on the mountains. So the decision was, okay, we're gonna close Cop Bella and simultaneously move up to Wanat, so that we're not just leaving kind of this
Open
vacuum
space,
to the north.
They could slide back in.
Yeah. So our command made the decision to move up to Wanat, and part of that was influenced by the fact that the unit coming in to replace us was going to be less experienced than we were. They were going to have lower manpower than we did, and this was to set the next unit up for success. I mean, it was something that I had learned on my first deployment. Our unit had spent our last month preparing to set up a forward operating base for the next unit coming in.
Okay.
So this wasn't out of the ordinary for us. And our leaders, I remember, our first sergeants and company commanders and battalion commanders, would say, we're not done until we're wheels up Afghanistan and we're home. Like there's no, timeout as we swap people out. We're in Afghanistan and you're in the fight up until the last day that you leave. And so the decision was made that, okay, close down Cop Bella. We're going to move up to Wanat, occupy, and provide security while for the construction of a new base so that we can set this next incoming unit up for success.
And then what happened?
So we moved out on, it was either July 8th or 9th. Moved out that evening. We convoyed up. We had loaded up our Humvees with all the equipment that we could carry, all the batteries, water, food, fortifications, whatever we could. And we moved under basically cover of darkness up to Wanat, established a vehicle patrol base in the middle of the village. Simultaneously, they closed down Cop Bella that night, and the helicopters flew over, so it was a simultaneous move.
So you did have air cover of some kind.
We did as they were coming back down,
Oh.
and we moved up to Wanat, which was probably only about straight line distance, 8 to 10 kilometers north of Fob Blessing, but it still took an hour and a half, 2 hours to drive there.
Up and down.
Windy roads, you got to clear it as you go, making sure there's no improvised explosive devices. We immediately that night started setting up our antennas, so we're able to talk back. Next morning, everybody starts digging in. We were supposed to have some construction equipment come up. We had hired local contractors. The road had washed out and a number of other factors. They weren't able to come up. So we had just a Bobcat, like one of the skid steer type tractors with some engineers to try and help build fortifications, but a lot of it was by hand. We're building these HESCO barriers, which are like these steel mesh baskets with like a fiberglass lining that you could just fill with dirt to
Okay.
build
That was your
fortifications.
bullet right there.
Yep.
Did they have covers to them?
Sandbags.
Roofs?
You could. We didn't at that point.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of times down at the vehicle patrol base, guys are digging big fighting positions next to the armored Humvees that we had that had heavy weapon systems. We started to construct a mortar firing point. We had a 120 millimeter mortar and a 60 millimeter mortar, so our mortar team was working on that, trying to build fortifications to both protect their ammo and give them a fortified position to operate out of. I was located with 8 other soldiers up a little bit outside the village on this spur, this little ridge line at the edge of the village. It was meant to be an observation post, but to provide a little relief for the base and maybe see a little bit more of the terrain for anybody trying to infiltrate in.
You were just watching Charlie sneak through.
Yeah, and I mean, we got the sense that the enemy was in the village watching us. I mean, you alluded to it. One of the things that's challenging is they're not wearing a uniform.
Yeah.
And they're not carrying weapons, but we could, there were a lot of fighting age males around watching us, both at the observation post where I was at and the fortifications that were down at the vehicle patrol base.
Could you spot people on the other hills?
Oh, it wasn't even just in the hills. I mean, in the village, sitting there having tea,
yeah.
watching our guys build fortifications, or people, climbing a tree, looking at our observation posts, and we'd have to tell them to, hey, get out of here. We don't want you
And then what
collecting
happened?
intelligence. So we were there for about 5 days, and on the morning of the 5th day, we're getting up every day, 30 minutes or more before the sun gets up, to do what we call stand to. Everybody's on guard and in preparation for a potential attack. That morning, just the same, we all get up. We're actually going to do a patrol that day, so everybody's kind of also getting ready to go on patrol. When one of the trucks, the heavy trucks that was in the vehicle patrol base, we had this tow missile system. So it's really an anti-tank missile, but we had used it. It had a reconnaissance, apparatus on it. I can't think of the term. The targeting system, thermal. So we would use it to
heat seeking.
Yeah, to attack personnel as well. And they had noticed some movement up in the mountains to the west, and spotted weapons on them. And from us being in Afghanistan, you get to learn patterns of life. And there, people don't go hiking like we do here, without having bad intentions. Nobody climbs a mountain for fun over there. So that to us indicated they're enemy forces. So as we're preparing, I was getting ready to work up a fire mission as a forward observer. I was going to call in artillery on their position. The enemy initiated a large-scale complex assault with a burst of machine gun fire from the north, and all of a sudden just rocket-propelled grenades from every side battered all the positions. The enemy, under cover of darkness, had moved into the village, so they were as close as 10, 15, 30 meters.
Wow.
They had also set up in the high ground. We were in the village, so it's kind of basically like being at the bottom of the bowl. The intention there, we're going to be close to the populace, but we didn't have the high ground.
No, but they had snipers right up there.
Machine gun positions, rocket-propelled grenades, everything they could. So they had basically had us surrounded 360 degrees, had the high ground, had the element of surprise, and hit us hard right from the onset.
Must have been hell.
It was. I mean, I was wounded right off the bat, as were a number of guys up at the observation post. I was up there with another team leader, Sergeant Matt Gobble, and we had 7 other guys. So Pruitt Rainey, Jonathan Ayers, and Gunners Willing. They were all, and Chris McKeag. They're all part of like a gun team. We had 2 machine guns. Up there, we had built some fortifications and had 2 machine guns. We also had Tyler Stafford, Jason Bogar, Matthew Phillips. So there were 9 of us up there, and right in the opening volley, I'm wounded. I get thrown. Gobble's wounded. Stafford gets wounded. So 3 of us are wounded. Gunners Willing is killed in the opening barrage.
Wasn't there a lieutenant with you?
Not at this point.
Okay.
This is just the 9 of us. Matthew Phillips is firing back at the enemy, and there was a stream to the north, and the enemy had come down through that dead space that we couldn't see into. And Matthew Phillips, as he was preparing to throw a grenade, was killed with a enemy rocket-propelled grenade came in and killed him. And you know, Stafford and Gobble and I we're all disoriented. But
were you out in the open, or were you in some kind of a closed
we had
area?
built fortifications. We had built
Okay.
sandbag bunkers. We didn't have any top cover. We had tried to use some of the natural terrain. So the spur was terraced because it was farm field. So they have to build flat areas to farm on. So it was terraced. So we had built on a couple of terraces that were there, and we were nestled up against some rocks. There were some trees around where we were at. So we tried to use the terrain to our advantage as best we could there.
Well, there was some kind of covering for the rear, at least. Some coverage.
Yes, we had built sandbags to the rear of our position, even though our forces were to our rear in the center of the village. There was a building between us, and there were some other buildings that the enemy that day had moved into that they were trying to split us all up.
Ooh.
But as Gobble and I were the senior leaders up at the observation post. The guys all jumped right into action. They didn't need any instructions. They had been there long enough. They stepped right up. Pruitt Rainey was the gun team leader. He immediately, kind of took control of the situation, got Ayers to control his rate of fire, start engaging the enemy on the eastern flank. Jason Bogar this was his second or third tour. He had been to Iraq, I think, and Afghanistan previously.
So he's seasoned.
Yeah, so he's seasoned too. He was he had a squad automatic weapon, so a smaller machine gun that he carried. He immediately stood up and started returning fire on the enemy and everybody's trying to gain, their fire superiority. These guys just immediately jumped to doing all the things that they should have been doing. Immediately providing security and engaging the enemy, despite the fact that, as distracting as it was, they've got a number of casualties of their brothers right behind them. Mm-hmm. And Gobble had gone down in the southern position where Bogar was. He's wounded in there. When I finally came to, I crawled down there. I couldn't use my legs. I had taken shrapnel to both of my legs, and I was concerned that I had maybe arterial bleeding inside of my leg. So Bogar put a tourniquet on my leg. He saved my life, treated me, and then turned around and went right back to doing what he had to do. Pruitt continued to control the fight. Down at the vehicle patrol base, they didn't have it any easier. They're all the guys in the gun trucks are being targeted heavily. The enemy's trying to take out our heaviest weapons.
How about who was keeping them supplied with ammunition? Because it sounds like you were just eating it right up.
We had stockpiled. We had brought a lot out with us.
Okay.
All the gun trucks had a significant amount of ammunition, but that's factoring heavily into it. How do you manage that supply when you're in this fight and you're trying to gain fire superiority? There were a lot of valorous acts that never required anybody shooting back at the enemy. I mean, we had these Mark 19 automatic grenade launchers that could shoot 300 to 400 grenades a minute, and that's an important and you can go through some ammo, and it's an important weapon system. But the problem was, unlike some of the other weapon systems like the 240 machine guns or the 50 cals, they couldn't be reloaded from inside the turret. So the gunners didn't have the relative safety to hide behind to reload them. And guys like Jacob Sones, I think Dylan Meyer and other guys were taking cans out of trucks. And these are big, ammunition cans. Mm-hmm. They're not light, probably 40, 50 pounds. And they're jumping on the hoods of the trucks, while rounds are smacking the trucks all around them and reloading these weapon systems. And guys did that repeatedly. And the guys manning the turrets, they're taking direct hits off of the shields in the front and the sides. And they know that the enemy's trying to take out their weapon systems, and they're just firing back. We had that tow missile truck. The enemy was familiar with the capabilities of that weapon system. It had earned the reputation over the deployment. The enemy called it the finger of God, because if it saw you, it was hitting you.
You did.
So they targeted that heavily, and that crew, Aaron Davis and Grimm and May, they stayed in that truck for as long as they could. But the enemy just really targeted it with rocket-propelled grenades. That truck had caught on fire and exploded.
With them inside it?
Yeah, it had caught on fire with them inside of it. They were able to get out of it and get to other fighting positions, and immediately, they're trying to impact the fight again. Just wherever they lose their truck, all right, they're moving to the next fighting position and aiding that fight in whatever way they could. Prior to that truck catching fire, our mortar team was taking a lot of fire. Like I said, they were smart. They're trying to neutralize our biggest weapon systems, and going after our mortars is a big one. They had concentrated a lot of fire on our mortar firing point, and those guys were shooting at people in trees right outside the perimeter, probably within 20, 30 meters of them, if not closer. They had taken around, I believe, an RPG had hit the kind of the magazine cache of all the ammo they had, and so they had to break contact from that position. They had to leave that position, and Sergio Abad was one of the mortarmen. He was mortally wounded, and those guys were, while they're dragging him to cover, Hector Chavez, one of the other mortarmen, he got shot through both legs, but fortunately the mortar team, they were able to all drag those guys back to
some kind of cover.
To some cover. But when that truck that caught fire, that tow truck, it eventually detonated, and when it exploded, it sent a flaming missile through the air that landed in the same position that some of that mortar team had gotten back to. It didn't hit anybody, but it's on fire, and it's a missile. And as those guys are getting ready to try and leave that position, one guy, Eric Phillips, grabs it and runs it out into the open to set it down. Because I think, I don't want to presume what he was thinking, but I'm sure he was thinking that risking one life is better than 5 or 6 trying to go every which way. He was able to run it out, and he made it back and save those guys, and those guys were able to keep fighting. But that was the thing. There were stories and I didn't even see any of these things. These are things that I learned later on after the battle that just.
Well, I was believing that somewhere near the end, when there was fear of being overrun completely, you were able to get to a phone or radio or something and call in, and you were then, in effect, rescued, relieved, or what have you.
Yeah, so there were.
How did that work out?
We were taking casualties up at the observation posts. So the fight right from the beginning was not going in our favor, just with the casualties that we had taken, and we were fortunate enough when we went out to Wanat that we were able to have both our company commander, Matt Meyer, and our platoon leader, Jonathan Brostrom. And so they were co-located at our command post down at the vehicle patrol base. And as the fight had kicked off and progressed, Matt Myers controlling the fight as he should as the company commander, directing indirect fire assets, relaying information back to our battalion headquarters and controlling the fight as he should. Lieutenant Brostrom recognizing that we're taking a number of casualties up at the observation post, and Gobble and I are both wounded, and he's hearing, okay, we've got 2 that are killed, we've got 3 that are wounded. That leaves 4 in the fight. That he recognized that he was needed up there. So he conferred with Matt Meyer. Matt said go. He moved to our 2nd platoon position. He ran to another gun truck there. And mind you, this vehicle patrol base it was set up in the middle of the village in this field where we were actually going to build the new FOB, the new fire base. So there's not much cover that these guys have aside from the holes they've dug in the ground and the trucks they have. Well, he runs to that position and asks for volunteers, and picks up Jason Hovader along the way. And Jason and Lieutenant Brostrom, they make a run, a mad dash from the vehicle patrol base. They don't stop, as far as I know, for cover. They just make a mad dash all the way to the observation post. And they're running, they have to run by enemy positions. Somehow they made it. I don't know how they did. But they did, and I was never so relieved. At that point, I was trying to fight and affect the fight. But I remember looking over and seeing Brostrom's head pop up over the sandbags, and he scared the hell out of me, but I never so relieved in my life to have him up there. And he immediately, started taking, assess the situation, started help take control of the observation post, because Gobble and I really were in no shape to manage it. I mean, everybody was doing their best. We were really, I don't know if anybody was really in charge. We're all just trying to work together. Everybody knew what they needed to do, and there wasn't time to micromanage. Bogar knew what he had to do. The gun team knew what they had to do. Everybody was just doing. Yeah,
that's your training.
Yeah, that everybody knew. I'm responsible for this, and I got to hold it, to the best of my ability. But over the course of Brostrom and Hovater being there, and we're moving things around, Brostrom and Hovater and Bogar and Rainey, the guys were all killed fighting. And it was at one point that I realized that I was by myself, that I called down to the vehicle patrol base, and that's when another wave
came up.
They could hear me, they could hear the enemy talking over my radio, and it was Jacob Sones who heard it. Our company commander had said, we don't have anybody to send, right? Everybody's stretched thin. They're taking casualties down there, that it's just, there's nobody to send. But Jacob Sones heard my call over the radio, and said, I'm going.
We'll get you, buddy.
Sergeant Pitts is up there. We're going. And his team leader went with him. He's actually a squad leader, Israel Garcia. They both made their way to our first squad position, who was manning a traffic control point. They had built, they were managing traffic coming through the center of the village, and they had built a fighting position on the southern end of the village, kind of between the vehicle patrol base and where we were at. So it's probably like 50, 100 yards to them, and then another 50, 75 yards from the traffic control point up to where I was at. So Israel and Jacob make it to that first squad position, and they link up with the first squad leader, Sergeant Sean Samaru, and Mike Denton, another guy carrying a smaller machine gun. And they start making their way up to the observation post, and when they get there, Sergeant Sam shoots an enemy fighter off of a rock that's shooting down in the observation post. And those guys come in and immediately take control. At that point, it's like you had brought up managing the ammunition. At this point, we're fighting for probably maybe over an hour. Everybody's starting to kind of run low on ammo, and Sam and Sergeant Sam, we call him Sam and Denton have to start searching casualties, are dead for ammo. And so while they're doing that, Garcia's pulling security and Sones is treating me, and it wasn't long after they had gotten there that another volley of rocket-propelled grenades came in and wounded all of us, and mortally wounded Israel Garcia.
When you were finally, I'll say, rescued, how did you get back? Did they helicopter you back for medical attention?
Yeah, it was right around the time that the guys came up to get me, Garcia and Sones and the rest of them, that the Apache helicopters started to come up and start doing gun runs. And it wasn't long after that the medevac helicopters started coming up. And I remember seeing one of them land down at the main vehicle patrol base and thinking, okay, we're going to have to get down there. But we're all banged up. We're all, shot to hell. And thinking, okay, all right, we're going to have to get down there. This is going to suck, but it's what we got to do. And this medevac helicopter comes in and lands right on the terraces between us and the enemy. And
was he taking fire?
I don't know how he wasn't. Yeah. But the crew chief gets off. The medics on the bird are getting off, and they're coming down the terraces and grabbing our guys, and our guys are helping. And I got loaded onto one of those helicopters, and that was the end of the fight for me. But it went on, after that, for hours.
Where did they bring you when you got back? Back to Italy and Germany? Or?
Yeah, I made my way back, through Afghanistan, the major bases, to Launchstoel in Germany. Mm-hmm. Kind of stabilized a bunch of us, and then from Launchstoel, I went back to Walter Reed with a number of the guys.
How long were you there?
I spent 30 days inpatient, and then I was there for about a year between physical therapy and working on my medical discharge process to get out of the Army.
And when were you told you were going to be put in for the medal? How did that come about?
Originally was submitted for Distinguished Service Cross, and it got upgraded along the way. I don't really remember where. I remember, it honestly always just felt like rumors, just talking about that, hey, it's been upgraded, and, never really believed it. There was another guy, you hear me talk about that ambush coming back from Ranch House. Kyle White was another soldier from my unit. He was nominated for a Medal of Honor for that day. And, we had kept in touch, but when he got his call and he was down at the Pentagon getting ready to do his preparations for the ceremony is when he told me that, that they would need my number and that it was probably coming up.
How'd you feel?
Honestly, over the years, I never cared. I remember, after, immediately after the battle, that happened in July of 2008. I ended up at Walter Reed, and I got to go back to Italy in August, September timeframe for like the welcome home celebrations with the unit. So I got to go see the guys. And I remember that's when I found out that I had been nominated for the Distinguished Service Cross. And I remember being kind of pissed off. When you lose, we lost 9 guys that day. Yeah. So we lost Sergio Bad, Jonathan Ayers, Jason Bogard, Jonathan Brostrom, Israel Garcia, Jason Hovader, Matthew Phillips, Pruitt Rainey, and Gunners Willing. And when you lose 9 guys, it's kind of hard to feel like you deserve anything. And I didn't do anything more than anybody else that day.
No.
And it just didn't seem fair. Like it just didn't seem right. And so I didn't care for that. And then hearing along the way that it had been potentially upgraded, still same thing, didn't sit well.
It's for them.
Yeah, but I didn't accept that. And you can tell yourself that, or I tried to tell myself that, but it's still like it didn't feel that way yet, because I'm being the one that's getting recognized. I'm being the one that's going to be awarded. So I just tried to go on with my life, and I came back and went to school, and it wasn't until I think a year after I had graduated that the award actually.
Okay, but you were out of the Army by then. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh dear. What have you been doing since? And making a life for yourself and your kids.
Yeah. So a year after the battle, right around there, got out of the Army, came back, went to college. I'd known my wife growing up, but right after the battle that December, I was still on crutches and all wounded. I came home for Christmas, and my wife was actually moving home from Florida. She wasn't my wife then or my girlfriend, but I bumped into her and asked her out, and we started dating, and we got married halfway through my time in college. I think maybe my junior year, and then we had our son my senior year right before I graduated. I graduated in 2013, and then just joined the workforce since.
Okay, what have you been doing? Something you liked, or?
I do, yeah.
Do you have your pick of a good job?
I work for a defense contractor now. I do finance for them, and I love it.
Good for you.
Yeah.
What are your plans? We talked about joining a lot of different organizations, but do you have any time for yourself? You can just, as you said, you just took a honeymoon 5-6 weeks ago.
Yeah, 5 years too late.
Your delay en route seems to be a little bit weird.
Yeah, I guess I kind of think of it, I try and break it up into 3 different areas, right? I want to have a professional career. I want to successfully transition into kind of that next thing. I love the military. I wish that I had been able to continue to do it, but with the injuries I had, I didn't feel like I could continue to do the things that I wanted to do at that level. So I want to have a successful civilian career. So that's important to me. Mm-hmm. And with that goes education. The other part, and the most important, the second thing is, I'm a father and a husband. I want to be the best that I can be at those things. I want to take my kids to sports and do family trips
and savor every moment.
Yeah, and really honor. There are a lot of guys that sacrifice their lives so I could come home, and I want to make sure that I make the most of that sacrifice, that I honor them the best that I can.
You will.
And I think I do that by living the best life that I can. Yeah. Making sure my kids understand that the only reason they exist is because other men
the guys
made it possible. Yeah. And then the third area is trying to give back. My service, I got so much more out of it than I gave. And I had originally joined for college money and because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Good way to get an education.
Yeah, and I wish that I had been more altruistic. I wish I had wanted to serve just because that's my duty as an American, and I want to pay it forward. So part of that is a couple of my passions are helping veterans transition, find jobs, get an education. The other part is it's no secret that it's hard coming back. and transitioning.
Oh yeah.
You know, there are mental health challenges. What we go through there, we're not broken because of it, but you are different. You come back, you get changed, and I felt it. And that, you know, encouraging service members, veterans, families to get that mental health treatment if they need it, because, you know, I'll go see a doctor if I roll my ankle or break my ankle. Why wouldn't I if it's some sort of, you know, invisible wound?
The hardest ones to diagnose.
And so, you know, there's a lot of stigma there, but doing what I can to help break down those barriers, encourage people to go get help, and, you know, supporting organizations that do those things.
Good deal. I think it's about that time. Only got 3 words. Thank you, friend.
Thank you, Bob.
Appreciate your work, and thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Amen.
For our forces in Afghanistan, the Battle of Wanat was one of the most fierce of this entire war. 48 Americans, along with their Afghan partners, were manning their small base deep in a valley when they were attacked by some 200 insurgents. And those insurgents seemed determined to overrun an even smaller post just outside the base, an elevated patch of boulders and sandbags defended by just 9 American soldiers. Soon, under the relentless fire, all 9 of these men were wounded or killed. Insurgents broke through the wire, and that little post was on the verge of falling, giving the enemy a perch from which to devastate the base below. Against that onslaught, 1 American held the line. Just 22 years old, nearly surrounded, bloodied but unbowed. The soldier we recognize today with our nation's highest military decoration, the Medal of Honor, Staff Sergeant Ryan M. Pitts. Now, I don't want to embarrass Ryan, but the character he displayed that day was clearly forged early. I'm told that in kindergarten, when asked what he wanted to be when he grew up, he drew a picture of a soldier. When he was in the 5th grade, his teacher sent home a note that described Ryan in words that would be familiar to all those who knew him today. Ryan, she wrote, is a very special human being. In Ryan Pitts, you see the humility and the loyalty that define America's men and women in uniform. With this medal, he says, it's not mine alone. It belongs to everybody who was there that day because we did it together. So I want to welcome those who were there that day. Ryan's brothers in arms and those who are going to be welcoming him into their ranks, the members of the Medal of Honor Society. We are very proud of them, and we are honored by the presence of the families of our fallen heroes as well. We welcome Ryan's family, many from New Hampshire, including his wonderful wife, Amy. I have to take a pause because they are actually celebrating, Ryan and Amy, their 2nd anniversary today. As Ryan put it, it's going to be tough topping this one, as anniversaries go. But let me just give you a piece of advice as somebody who's now been married for over 20 years. You should try. I'm just saying, don't rest on your laurels after just 2 years. We welcome their gorgeous son, 1-year-old Lucas, who Ryan is beginning to teach a love for all things New England. Of course, the Red Sox, and the Bruins, and the Celtics, and the Pats. I want you to try and imagine the extraordinary circumstances in which Ryan and his team served. This was the summer of 2008, and this was a time when our forces in Afghanistan were stretched thin and our troops were deployed to isolated outposts. They had just arrived in Wanat, just days before, and they were still building their very small base, a handful of armored vehicles in fighting positions, in foxholes and sandbags. Wanat, one report later concluded, had significant vulnerabilities. Parts of the village sat on higher ground. On every side, mountains soared 10,000 feet into the sky. Heavy equipment to help build their defenses was delayed. In the 100-degree heat, the soldiers ran low on water, and the aerial surveillance they were counting on was diverted away to other missions. Now, early that morning, in the pre-dawn darkness, they spotted several men up the mountains. But before Ryan and his team could take action, the entire valley erupted. Machine gun fire and mortar and rocket-propelled grenades poured down from every direction. And those 200 insurgents were firing from ridges and from the village and from trees. Down at the base, a vehicle exploded, scattering its missiles back at our soldiers. It was, said a soldier, hell on earth. Up at their tiny post, Ryan and his team were being pounded. Almost instantly, every one of them was wounded. Ryan was hit by shrapnel in the arm and both legs and was bleeding badly. Already 3 American soldiers in that valley had fallen, and then a 4th. As the insurgents moved in, Ryan picked up a grenade, pulled the pin, and held that live grenade for a moment, then another, and then another, finally hurling it so they couldn't throw it back. And he did that again, and he did it again. Unable to stand, Ryan pulled himself up on his knees and manned a machine gun. Soldiers from the base below made a daring run, dodging bullets and explosions, and joined the defense. But now the enemy was inside the post. So close, they were throwing rocks at the Americans. So close, they came right up to the sandbags. 8 American soldiers had now fallen, and Ryan Pitts was the only living soldier at that post. The enemy was so close, Ryan could hear their voices. He whispered into the radio. He was the only one left and was running out of ammo. I was going to die, he remembers, and made my peace with it. And then he prepared to make a last stand. Bleeding and barely conscious, Ryan threw his last grenades. He grabbed a grenade launcher and fired nearly straight up so the grenade came back down on the enemy just yards away. One insurgent was now right on top of the post shooting down until another team of Americans showed up and drove him back. As one of his teammates said, had it not been for Ryan Pitts, that post almost certainly would have been overrun. Even with reinforcements, the battle was not over. Another wave of rocket-propelled grenades slammed into the post. 9 Americans were now gone, and still the fighting raged. Ryan worked the radio, helping target the airstrikes that were hitting danger close, just yards away. And with those strikes, the tide of the battle began to turn. Eventually, the insurgents fell back. Ryan and his fellow soldiers had held their ground. This medal, Ryan says, is an opportunity to tell our story. There was valor everywhere, according to Ryan. And so today we also pay tribute to all who served with such valor that day, shielding their wounded buddies with their own bodies, picking up unexploded missiles with their hands and carrying them away, running through the gunfire to reinforce that post, fighting through their injuries and never giving up. Helicopter pilots and medevac crews who came in under heavy fire. Said one soldier, "Never in my career have I seen such bravery and sacrifice." And so I would ask all those who served at Wanat on the ground and in the air to please stand, those of you who are here today. Most of all, Ryan says he considers this medal a memorial for the guys who didn't come home. So today we honor 9 American soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice for us all. The son who absorbed love like a sponge, the expectant father whose dream would later come true, a beautiful baby girl, specialist Sergio Abad, the boy who dominated the soccer fields, fell in love with motorcycles, and there in that remote outpost took a direct hit in the helmet and kept on fighting, Corporal Jonathan Ayers. The photographer whose beautiful pictures captured the spirit of the Afghan people and who wrote to his family, "Afghanistan is exactly where I want it to be," Corporal Jason Boger. The father who loved surfing with his son, the platoon leader who led a dash through the gunfire to that post to reinforce his men, First Lieutenant Jonathan Brostrom, an immigrant from Mexico who became a proud American soldier on his third tour, whose final thoughts were of his family and his beloved wife, Leslie, Sergeant Israel Garcia, a young man of deep faith who served God and country, who could always get a laugh with his impersonation of his commander, Corporal Jason Hovater, the husband who couldn't wait to become an uncle, the adventurous spirit who in every photo from Afghanistan has a big smile on his face, Corporal Matthew Phillips, the big guy with an even bigger heart, a prankster whose best play was cleaning up at the poker table with his buddies and his dad, Corporal Pruitt Rainey, and the youngest, just 20 years old, the little brother of the platoon who loved to play guitar and who, says his dad, did everything in his life with passion, Corporal Gunnar Zwilling. These American patriots lived to serve us all. They died to protect each of us, and their legacy lives on in the hearts of all who love them still, especially their families, mothers, fathers, wives, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters. To you, their families, I know no words can match the depth of your loss, but please know that this nation will honor your soldiers now and forever. And I would ask the Gold Star families from that deployment to please stand, including Allie Kaler, age 11, and Jace Brostrom, who this week turns 12. Please stand. This is the story Ryan wants us to remember. Soldiers who loved each other like brothers and who fought for each other, and families who've made a sacrifice that our nation must never forget. Ryan says, I think we owe it to them to live lives worthy of their sacrifice, and he's absolutely right. As Commander-in-Chief, I believe one of the ways we can do that is by heeding the lessons of Wanat. When this nation sends our troops into harm's way, they deserve a sound strategy and a well-defined mission, and they deserve the forces and support to get the job done. And that's what we owe soldiers like Ryan and all the comrades that were lost. That's how we can truly honor all those who gave their lives that day. That's how, as a nation, we can remain worthy of their sacrifice. I know that's a view that's shared by our Secretary of Defense and by our Joint Chiefs of Staff and all the leadership here. They're hard lessons, but they're ones that are deeply ingrained in our hearts. It is remarkable that we have young men and women serving in our military who day in, day out are able to perform with so much integrity, so much humility, and so much courage. Ryan represents the very best of that tradition, and we are very, very proud of him, as we are of all of you. So God bless you, Ryan. God bless all who serve in our name. May God continue to bless the United States of America. And with that, I would like our military aide to please complete the ceremony.
The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress, March 3, 1863, has awarded in the name of Congress the Medal of Honor to Sergeant Ryan M. Pitts, United States Army, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. Sergeant Ryan M. Pitts distinguished himself by extraordinary acts of heroism at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, while serving as a forward observer in 2nd Platoon, Chosen Company, 2nd Battalion Airborne, 503rd Infantry Regiment, 173rd Airborne Brigade, during combat operations against an armed enemy at Vehicle Patrol Base Kaler in the vicinity of Wanat village, Kunar Province, Afghanistan, on July 13, 2008. Early that morning, while Sergeant Pitts was providing perimeter security at Observation Post Topside, a well-organized anti-Afghan force consisting of over 200 members initiated a close proximity, sustained, and complex assault using accurate and intense rocket-propelled grenade, machine gun, and small arms fire on Wanat Vehicle Patrol Base. An immediate wave of rocket-propelled grenade rounds engulfed the observation posts, wounding Sergeant Pitts and inflicting heavy casualties. Sergeant Pitts had been knocked to the ground and was bleeding heavily from shrapnel wounds to his arm and legs, but with incredible toughness and resolve, he subsequently took control of the observation posts and returned fire on the enemy. As the enemy drew nearer, Sergeant Pitts threw grenades, holding them after the pin was pulled and the safety lever was released to allow a nearly immediate detonation on the hostile forces. Unable to stand on his own and near death because of the severity of his wounds and blood loss, Sergeant Pitts continued to lay suppressive fire until a two-man reinforcement team arrived. Sergeant Pitts quickly assisted them by giving up his main weapon and gathering ammunition, all while continually lobbing fragmentary grenades until these were expended. At this point, Sergeant Pitts crawled to the northern position radio and described the situation to the command posts as the enemy continued to try and isolate the observation posts from the main patrol base. With the enemy close enough for him to hear their voices, and with total disregard for his own life, Sergeant Pitts whispered in radio situation reports and conveyed information that the command posts used to provide indirect fire support. Sergeant Pitts' courage, steadfast commitment to the defense of his unit, and ability to fight while seriously wounded prevented the enemy from overrunning the observation post and capturing fallen American soldiers, and ultimately prevented the enemy from gaining fortified positions on higher ground from which to attack Wanat Vehicle Patrol Base. Sergeant Ryan M. Pitts' extraordinary heroism and selflessness above and beyond the call of duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, Company C, 2nd Battalion Airborne, 503rd Infantry Regiment, 173rd Airborne Brigade, and the United States Army.